videos back on the Email Insider Summit agenda. So if you go online over the next day or so, you should see all the material there, including most of the slides. So you can go back and refer to the stuff that you saw here on stage and pass them along to your colleagues. Also, I want to warn everybody, this is going to get really interactive on the third day. We are going to finish this morning with a roundup panel of some veterans of the Email Summit, and we're going to be turning it back on you and asking you some questions about the sorts of takeaways that you've gotten from the last few days, the trends that you're seeing. So think a little bit about some of the things that you've noticed over the last few days, the things you've been talking about in the roundtables, the things that have stood out, because we really want to engage you in the final session today. So think about that, because I'm going to be out there with the microphone doing the Donahue stuff. Also, I want to thank, this is Ken's little joke, is that he got the vegan in the group to thank our bacon sponsor. Adestra, I want to thank you very much. There was a time in my life when I really would have loved that, and I'm not judgmental, but if my wife, who's the real tree hugger in the couple, were here, she'd say, "You're eating Wilbur?"
Steve. Can I take 30 seconds to tell you a little bit about the history behind this sponsorship? Can I?
The bacon sponsor.
30 seconds. So real quick, those of you who've been to the Email Insider Summit know that day 3, the breakfast always sucks. And the reason is because, we've pumped you with, meat and cheese for like 2 straight days. And Ken, who's a very wise man, has always said, look, we need granola on day 3. Well, I hate to break it to you, but granola ain't doing it. Ain't really doing it. So a couple years ago, Ryan Phelan came to me and said, "Where's the bacon, man? Day 3, what happened to the bacon?" I said, "Well, we got granola, and we got yogurt, and we got that. Go have that." Ryan's like, "No, dude, that doesn't work." So he called me at one point and said, back in like August, a couple years ago, he said, I just want to sponsor, I don't want to sponsor a cocktail party, I don't want to sponsor a dinner, but you know what? I want to sponsor bacon on day 3. I said, okay, we'll create a sponsorship called the Day 3 Bacon Sponsorship, which we did. Now, Ryan took it to another level. He somehow found some sick freak that makes stress ball bacon strips. That's what this is. So when you're stressed, Mr. Vegan, just squeeze your bacon stressor when you can, and then you'll feel better. All right. Please, one more round of applause for the bacon sponsor, because my God, that's pretty creative. All right, take it away.
And luckily, that actually looks a lot like baked tofu. So for those of us on the vegan side of things, you can pretend that it's tofu. But we wanted to today we're going to veer back towards looking at taking the strategic view, but then also wrapping up by leaning forward. So we're going to be talking about some of the emerging technologies and the ways in which marketers can field a lot of them. And then in our roundup, we're also going to be leaning forward into the next email summit. And I want some of you to think about what are some of the things that we really should be programming for the next time. But we're going to start with wrapping this up with a strategic view. What our keynote speaker today, Joyce Sudzik, VP of Digital and Social Media at AEG, calls building a better mousetrap, but avoid getting trapped. How you pull all those pieces together. We've been talking over the last few days about busting silos, but also the internal politics of dealing across the various departments, as well as building the tech stack. So Joyce is going to talk to us today about how they've been putting it together at AEG. So let me welcome Joyce. She oversees most of their various digital marketing channels throughout AEG, so she's the one who's trying to pull all of these things together and make everyone work nicely together. She was also named the Digital Power Player by Billboard Magazine in 2015. Please welcome Joyce Sudzik.
Thank you. You got to wake up a little AC/DC in the morning and get us started, because it's really hard to follow bacon. Okay, so how do you like the clickbait title? Did I get you? All right, so one of the first themes that I've seen here is everybody has the obligatory selfie photo of their excursions out on the hill. I don't know if I'm happy or sad to say I survived unscathed. I didn't get a black eye. I didn't roll my ankle. Maybe next year, but there's still time today. I still got to get out the door. But yeah, no, this has been a lot of fun. Then my phone froze after this, like a lot of people's iPhones froze. So if anybody has the group shot from the top of the hill, there were a bunch of different group shots. Send them my way. Okay, so I have been with AEG 14 years in February, and it's been mostly on the live side. So I've been concert marketing for 25 years. I started when I was 12, okay? And this is my first email marketing summit, and I'm pretty excited to be here. This has been a great group. So who is AEG? I'm kind of excited to wait and have this panel on the third day so that nobody can be asking me for tickets. We are actually the second largest concert promoter in the entire world, doing little events like Coachella, Desert Trip. We have 34 festivals. We have Hyde Park in London. We are also the world's largest operator of clubs and theaters, your little boutique clubs that you see your up and rising bands. These are just a few of our little shots. These are going slower than I thought. But we also have about 150 arenas that we either own, operate, or manage around the world, including the O2 in London and Mercedes-Benz in Shanghai. Soccer stadiums, StubHub Center in LA, Houston, we have the Houston. We're in convention centers. This is Sydney that's reopening this summer. LA Kings. What, nobody? LA Kings hockey? Oh, people. Berlin hockey. LA Galaxy, soccer. Yeah. Okay. We do special events like the Nike 3-on-3 in our LA Plaza. And for the 8th or 9th year now, we have the second largest bike race next to Utah, actually with the Engine Tour of California. And we're a bunch of that went fast. We're a bunch of promoter groups as well, including, you know us as Golden Voice. Messina Touring Group is basically the company behind Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Eric Church, different country artists, George Strait. The map is super hard to read, but we're in a lot of places around the world for our facilities. The facility division is your big arenas. The live side is more of your clubs and theaters, and that's the division I most recently came out of. And that seriously is an eye chart. But we have a lot of those around the country. And then we have our sports side. So you've got the LA Kings, Amgen Tour of California, the Ontario Reign. We just acquired rugby. Not sure how that's going to play in and what exactly they do. It was fun to kind of hear about that. Always new sports. So yeah, what you have here is 80 different business units, essentially. 150 different brands. Each festival is its own brand. All of the sports teams are their own brands. So there's some inherent challenges that we have in being able to rein everything in one way. So like for email marketing, the bulk of them pretty much do the same types of campaigns. We're sending you pre-sale alerts. We're sending you on-sale alerts. We're letting you know there could be upgrades. Teams are doing season tickets. We might be doing group sales. You'll get, your Cyber Monday. You'll get looking forward, seeing you at the show, much like the Detroit Pistons do. You'll get a thank you for attending. And it varies by venue because each entity has its own way of doing things, like I'm sure some of you have seen. So altogether, we're at about 1 billion sends across all the different properties. So the 1 billion seems to be a common theme for send counts I'm noticing. It equals about 8,000 different campaigns a year going out the door. And with that, most of them are very brand-centric. It's about the Staples Center branding. It's about the Golden Voice branding. It's about the LA Kings branding. Majority, there's an asterisk on that, are mobile-friendly. We're working on the other brands because we really have never had a central area. And that's one of the things I'm going to be getting to. But as we've all been discussing, email is now at the center of everything going on in our office. Social uses email. Retargeting, can use email. You have video ads. You can upload your audiences to YouTube, create more ads. Apps, email itself. Everybody's grabbing at the same thing. So we wanted to build a better mousetrap. How do we pull all these brands together? How do we get everybody playing nicely in the sandbox and not grabbing other people's data? Because everybody thinks it's theirs. Sports is like this. Live is like this. Festivals is like this. Venues are like this. Nobody wants to share their data. Greatest quote I've seen, Jeff Bezos, Amazon. Anybody who doesn't change their mind a lot is dramatically underestimating the complexity of the world we live in. To put together a strategy and not change it is ill-conceived. You have to continually be evolving. I call it bright, shiny object syndrome, right? You have all of these bright, shiny objects, new technologies. I've learned a lot about some of the great vendors that are in this room, other vendors that are out there. Everybody has a better way to do the mousetrap. So you have to be evaluating these new technologies, the way new data sources can be attributed. So we are trying to work on a very fluid plan. This, I don't remember, I did steal this from somewhere, I'll admit it, but it's really great. If marketing doesn't understand technology, and IT doesn't really understand marketing, then their collaboration can really look like this. Marketing asks for faster horses. We like everything faster. IT gives them faster horses. Guess what happens? The car flies by because they haven't been really talking about what's best and what really kind of goes together. So one of the biggest things that we've done at AAG is rebrand information technology. It's no longer IT. It's digital services. Back in September, I left marketing concerts, and now I'm on the CIO's team. I am looking at technology along with a couple other people that we're bringing in to do business intelligence. And it's applying a layer of collaboration that not many businesses are actually doing out there. As with everybody, the customer is your central focus. Also with many companies, your brand is your central focus. So how do the two collaborate? As we saw on the previous slide, everybody wants a piece of that email. Everybody does want to put the customer first and serve them the offers that are the most relevant, what works for them, right message, right time. But you have to have technology working right. And like the car passing the horse, you need that translator, somebody to kind of measure the bright, shiny objects. Do they actually work for how our marketers work? Live concert business, we've heard from the Schubert, we've heard from Live Nation. You don't get a lot of time, but you have a lot of opportunity to do some really cool stuff. So we're able to try to figure out how can we not stop what we're doing, but how can we innovate with all these different new technologies that our marketers can actually use? Some of them have been marketing for a really long time and are really innovative. They get it, they love it, they want to jump on these new technologies. Our bands, our teams, our venues love jumping on new technologies. Sets us apart. But you have to be able to plug in and not hurt what you've got going on. So you've got some challenges. We got a lot of challenges. But you're not alone. That's like the greatest thing about this conference, right? Everything I'm hearing over the last 2.5 days or 3 days total, everybody's kind of in that same boat. We all want to build that multi-channel campaign management tool. We want our email talking to our social so that when that conversion fires, you're no longer serving up ads and pushing out SMS notifications. You can change your messaging along that journey that we're all trying to build. So one of the challenges at AEG in putting together that strategy is really understanding what we have. And with all of our brands, we have a lot. And we are not going to all go to one system. It doesn't really work for us. So it's understanding what we have that we can kind of leverage. So we've got Teradata as our master data source. We have a lot of companies in MS Dynamics that are using the MS CRM tool. We've got a little bit of Redpoint out there. Our creative is everywhere, including external hard drives, which from a safety perspective is always a great thing. We are using Litmus, ESPs, A lot of the companies on Salesforce. We got part of the company on Adobe. We've actually got people using MailChimp in some of our venues, which is great. It's an amazing tool. We're just trying to figure out how all these can actually benefit and talk to each other. And then when you get into reporting, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. So you've got it from the platforms. You've got it from the database. You got Google. You got Adobe Analytics. You've got Ticketmaster One is a great, I keep hitting this, I'm sorry. MySQL for raw data out of our database. We've got Tableau. We've got Return Path. We've got SurveyMonkey. It's exhausting. So I'm going to call it humble data quality. We have a lot of the same issues times 10 that maybe some of the other, like a Schubert or somebody has in the live entertainment business. We have, the ticketing deal goes with the venue. So if the venue is Ticketmaster, we get our data from Ticketmaster. If the venue is eTix, we get our data from eTix. There's over 100 primary different ticketing agencies out there, of which maybe 10 are capable of giving us customer information back. So we are blind to maybe a third of our data, and that's a third of our customers, that we just can't get back because we're not the e-commerce in almost any of our situations. If you're the Kings, you're the Galaxy, when you're doing group sales, season tickets, we own those consumers. Those relationships are more in that MS CRM tool. It's more held at the local level. It's going through our ticketing system. So the data's humble. We get what we get. We try to append as much as we can elsewhere. The siloed departments and the siloed teams make it really interesting to be able to get that. As I showed you before, everybody's like this with their data. They don't want to give it to anybody else. And it's the technology. IT gives them what they need, which is what they should. But we need to kind of make it talk together, get everybody on the same page, leverage that scale for cost as well as just user knowledge. How often do you have somebody actually leave the company and all that institutional knowledge is gone? Nothing's documented. You need to be able to have a lot of resources in that same tool so that if someone goes, maybe they're promoted, you can pull up somebody else from another division and give them that opportunity. So just like everybody else, there's a recognition challenge. This is a recent study that every day in the US, over 150,000 people change jobs. Most people use their work email for signing up for newsletters, purchasing tickets, maybe they're not quite on Gmail. Extrapolate that out times a year. When audience participation time, how many of you refresh your audience data? Like for instance, we use Experian. You buy a ticket, Experian appends data, matches you into our system, you're good. If you're doing that, how often are you refreshing? Quarterly? Once a year? When you think about it? Yeah, well, this is one of the things that I'm working on. I didn't quite realize it was only when you come into our database that we're appending this information. So think about when you get married, you have kids, you get divorced, your information changes. Maybe we thought you had kids in the household that we can send a Wiggles email to, but now we need to be sending you an AC/DC email instead. And this is another great survey that just came out a couple months ago. It really is looking at the top challenges with email marketing, and I thought it was great because the top 3 are ours. We do have a very difficult time segmenting because our data is in multiple places. Most of the instances, you actually have to know SQL to go into the database, pull out the list of people that you want. It's not quite as drag drop, but we are working towards that, and that's what I'm really excited about. Growing our subscriber lists. 93% of our database is comprised of people who purchased the ticket. It's the ticket transaction coming in. The other 7% is somebody who actively went on one of our websites and signed up to receive newsletters. We need to work on that. So part of the marketing strategy that we're going to be working on is how do we do that? How do we create those re-engagement campaigns? How do we get more people driving in to sign up for newsletters? And then what data are they giving us back? How do we put them into a drip campaign so that we can just keep adding the layers to it? The birthdays, their favorite shows, what their kids like to do. Tracking results. As I mentioned before, data is everywhere. So how do we streamline it? And that's what we're working towards as well. Then you've got politics. The dark side of corporate is a world full of politics that I never quite appreciated from the live side. So it's really it's getting a lot of herding cats to kind of understand where you want to go, why it's important to be there, how can you be better at being there. And that change is not going to make you redundant or eliminate you. Just because we look to do automation or look to improve our tools doesn't mean the people that are doing those tools are going to go away. We need to work to retrain them. I've heard this theme over and over, and that is something that we need to do across all verticals. So when you realize it's not quite working, this is why we've made the shift. So we've really identified a cross-divisional committee of stakeholders that are truly invested in this. And it's a mix. We've got the people in the trenches who are sending the emails, who are working in social, who are touching our websites. Then we have got the management team that like to think we know what we're doing. We've started small and we've gotten together. So we've created 6 basically interest groups. These are everybody who wants to touch an email, right? You have your salespeople who are selling your group season tickets, your VIP packages and whatnot. What's important to them? Marketing, email marketing, retargeting, media buys. What's important? Social. How are they using the email list? Is it secure when they're uploading it to Facebook to create those audiences? Legal cares a tremendous amount about the data privacy. I still labeled it IT for the sake of the room. Data governance, technology, security. Where is it going? Who's touching it? And how can we make it all work together? Business intelligence. We're building out an amazing team of people that are going to really be able to dive in. We've all done it individually before. Now we're going to be able to do it at a top level. So in talking with all these different 6 groups, we wanted to align the goals. No matter the silo that you're in, these are really the 7 that we came up with because they do impact the entire organization, right? So obviously engagement rates, whether it's email, your social ads, what are they actually viewing the app and the SMS push notification. You want to make sure that you're increasing your customer acquisition. How are we finding more people? Personalization, major point. Just because you may have gotten divorced, now you want AC/DC, not Wiggles. You need to have something served up to you that's contextual. Brand awareness, we're a million different brands, so it's about who is AEG? You'll be seeing a little bit more from AEG as a brand and not thinking we're the insurance company anymore. Making your data better and reducing your marketing costs. So then it kind of comes down to asking the real questions. This is the phase we're in really right now. Figuring out where all your data sits. What's important to you? How should it be interpreted? The sports guys are going to interpret data very differently from the Desert Trip or Coachella guys or the guys over in Germany because the data rights are very different. Customers are very different. What we're doing in Shanghai, very different. How does it relate to the rest of the ecosystem? How do we kind of build on that? Who's touching it? Who's consumed by it? How do we protect it? And which business is it actually pushing? Butts and seats, ultimate goal, all the way around. And then governance, of course. So then we kind of take that. We're pulling together the strategy of where you're pushing out. So your media is on the top, our websites, our social, our email, our paid campaigns. The heart of it is your CRM tool, the elusive single customer view that we're all going for, the data sources that can power that and feed back with your websites and your apps, inserting business intelligence platform, and then creating some automations. How can we create this cycle to be able to push things out faster? It's all about building the faster mousetrap, not just a better one. And then you gotta resist the urge to throw everything at it. You have to evaluate your tools, your bright, shiny objects. Make sure that what you're doing is constantly being reevaluated. Is there a better product? You don't want to be shifting every 6 months or swiping right on the Tinder profile. You want to make sure that you're picking the right tools for what your business needs in that moment, but strategically looking ahead. AI, virtual reality, these are coming really fast. Message bots. how you all use that and how they are integrated. So you have to move at a pace, we've noticed, to get things done. We got shows going on sale every single weekend. We got shows playing off every single day. We can't stop our technology and wait to build the better mousetrap. We have to be building it along the way. A lot of resources out there to kind of help us get aligned with this strategy and kind of break it all down. Swipe this off of Gartner. It's a really great checklist of all the things that we're looking at as an IT marketing strategy and being able to cover governance, organization, that vision, metrics, strategy, culture, technology, data, and improvements, and really kind of break it down into digestible pieces of information. And isn't it funny how executive sponsorship is there? You have the C-suite on board in June with what you're doing, and they're all aboard and you're greenlit. And then November budget season happens, and they're like, what? This is going to cost us how much? I'm like, yeah, you signed off on it in June. No, that's crazy. You got to cut your budget. And then you get them back buying in. But with our group, it's really challenging because it's not one C-suite that we're going to. We're going to 80 different business stakeholders and with our hands out begging them for money and understanding and evangelizing that strategy, that mission. How are these tools going to help everybody? And that's the politics, and that's the beggar, and that's the corporate world, but it actually works, and we are on a strategy that is getting that buy-in so we can get these tools into place. After losing a lot of sleep, being a little frustrated, but it all comes together. And it's really the phased approach. Executive sponsorship comes first, the process. What is it going to take? What are the tools? Who are the people? Data governance and privacy. You have to have these rules in place before you can really start doing anything else. And this is pretty much where we are today, and this is where we'll be Q1. Roles, resources, responsibilities, more accountability to the different business units, better tools for measuring what we're doing, better analysts in place to dissect it and really turn it into insights that then can go back to the marketing people so that they can be better on their creative, their emails, their Facebook ads, everything that we have out there. And then lastly, training people how to use this. What is the best way for them to kind of learn when you have everybody running the gambit of different knowledge bases? You want to bring them along on the ride. Don't leave them out. We have some opportunities for success. We have the people in place. We need to bring in more people, like every organization does. But we've got some good wins happening because we can support it centrally, but we can also let the individual venues, teams, promoters, festivals, be empowered to do it locally. And that's the most important thing to success. You have to have everybody be a part of the mission. You can't pull it away from them. So then it goes back into that big world of forward thinking is one of the next steps. The cloud, Internet of Things, AI, VR, educating, retraining, and then really putting some numbers to things. That's where we're going to be working for next in our strategy. So it's a lot. You want to give up, but you just keep going. So we've laid that groundwork of collaboration, governance of data so that you have an unbiased manager of it that's not going to just give it away to anybody that needs that data. They're going to protect the interests of the different groups, where that customer came from, how we use it for cross-marketing. If we have an event going on in one venue and we have a team in that venue, they're not talking. Unless maybe the event's not selling tickets. Then they start getting in-game things or whatever. We're going to figure out different ways that we can actually help each other promote ourselves better. And good manners. It's all about good manners. So that's how we're going to have our cake, eat it too, build a better mousetrap. Any questions?
Thank you, Joyce. That's great. That's great. What a great deep drill into this. Questions for Joyce?
I have no bacon.
Is there a data czar at the head of this? Who's the one who's actually calling the shots as to where the data goes, how it gets parsed out?
There is a data czar that will be identified Q1.
How about shared learnings? How are you building into this? And this is something that came up over the last few days, is making sure that the various units and various constituencies, especially since you're an international company, are sharing the best practices.
That is one of the frameworks that we're putting into place that really goes along with that cross-marketing component of one of the last slides that I had. Everybody individually is doing amazing things. And it's really difficult within our organization to share that. I think with many other organizations that have, like, we'll call it franchisees maybe in other instances. So you get so busy in that day-to-day, it's literally one marketer in this venue, and that's it. So they're kind of on their own. Everybody feels like they're an island. And that's the one thing I've been hearing since I kind of shifted into this position. We're an island. Everybody forgets about us. So that's one of the first initiatives in being able to understand, in this process of putting together the strategy, what do they need, what do they have, what do they want, what are they capable of doing, and then identifying those tools, training resources, and ways to make their lives easier to be able to do their jobs better.
Is there any impetus to flatten the stack at all? Does this structure sort of presume the inevitable and persistent complexity of the tech stack? Or do you have any initiatives that try, at least in some places, to flatten that a little bit and unify it?
I think it'd be everybody's long-term goal to flatten that stack, but at the rate the technology is evolving today, we feel, at least for the next couple years, it is going to be, we'll call it inflated tech stack, just because you want the best tool for the job, and not one vendor we've identified has that.
Steve?
Yeah.
Right back here.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Loved it. You mentioned prominently the idea of kind of process-based governance in there and trying to align all your 80 different stakeholders and all these other kinds of things. Completely on board conceptually, and I'm one of the people that loves talking about governance. And I find that everybody else, if I say that word a lot of times, people's eyes roll back in their head, and they just don't even want to engage with it. And the idea of getting lots of stakeholders aligned behind process-based governance that's consistent and evolves is a great thing to say, but really, really hard to do.
Correct.
Any suggestions, experience, tips, tricks, things that worked well for you?
So, absolutely, I am of the mind of start small, but kind of not sucker punch it in from the side, but when you'll be amazed at what can get greenlit when it comes through a buddy of an executive, or the next door kid that your kid plays with and they're talking about this great thing or whatnot. So you find ways to seed a concept in an easy, tangible sort of way, and then you have it bubble up. Because if you come in going, governance, security, people glaze over, they know it's important, but if they hear real-world case studies of how it applies, they're all about it. And that is the approach that we're taking right now. Thank you.
Joyce, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And any presentation, continuing a number of these conversations about how to vet the technologies and the processes necessary to move forward, and especially adopt a lot of the emerging technologies and approaches to email and all of marketing. I want to welcome back, many of you have already heard Chris's name mentioned because he's a veteran of the email summits, famous for his signature lightning rounds, which I presume not to put pressure on him, Chris, but he's famous for his lightning round endings for his panels, as many have referenced. Chris has been to many of our email summits. He's the president of Marketing Democracy. One of the things, Chris's job really is to advise Fortune 500 companies on exactly what we're going to talk about now, how to vet the technologies and understand the ways in which you build a stack and understand how much automation really is needed in the process. So please welcome back Chris Marriott.
Thanks very much. Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Trigger Happy Vetting Emerging Technologies and the Limits of Automation. I want to read through the description of it because I know most people don't carry the schedule around with them, but I want to make sure that we're all sure of what it is we're addressing and focus on that. So today we're going to talk about automation and how it's key to personalization, hyper-segmentation, and especially to responding to and anticipating consumer behaviors. How are vendors, how are these folks, email professionals, evaluating their own needs, the potential and limits of these technologies, and what are the limits of automation? So that's going to be the focus. They've all provided me with a lot of great input on what they're doing, so I think we're going to have a great session, and I'll be mainly asking each of them individual questions that relate to their particular challenges in their company. Thanks, Steve, for that introduction. Marketing Democracy, that is what we do. We help enterprise emailers in the vendor selection process, particularly around email RFPs. Several of our clients are in the room. We've been fortunate to work with a lot of great big brands like Allstate, like Rodale, like American Airlines, who was supposed to be here, and Dollar Shave Club. So again, if for all your email RFP needs, we're a one-stop shop. Anyway, enough about me. I'm going to go down the line, have each of my outstanding panelists introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their job, their company, and then we'll jump right in. So thanks, Nick.
So my name is Nick Allen. I lead the engagement team at Lyft. We are a pretty small team, kind of owning channels, email, SMS, push, in-app notes, both kind of on the driver and the passenger side of our business. So we are very kind of growth focused and experimental, running lots of different kind of personalization and data driven experiments, and really kind of a primary driver of growth for Lyft as a company. So small team, but packing a really big punch through experimentation to kind of grow our business on both supply and demand.
My name is Shipley Munson. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, and therefore I suppose the token C-suite representative and butt of so many jokes. With Family Search International, we're the largest genealogy company in the world. We've been doing this since 1893. We are entirely funded by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons, and be careful about what you say around here, because there are lots of us in Utah. And I'm here because email has become by far, our most strategically important marketing instrument. And the email people have become the best at matching highly personalized individual offers to customers. And increasingly, I'm looking to the email team to lead the entire marketing effort of the enterprise.
Alex.
Yep. Hi, I'm Alex Pa. I am the Director of Email and Loyalty Marketing for SkyZone Franchise Group. We are the biggest operator of trampoline parks in the country, and actually we're also in the Middle East, Canada, South America, and the UK. My role primarily, for the first time in the history of the company, we never had a centralized corporate CRM strategy as well as campaign management. So I came on board to do that. And then the other half of my job is creating a loyalty program from the ground up. So that's me.
And Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Schaefer. I just won an iWatch today, so it's my lucky day. I'm the senior retention marketer at HP.com's e-commerce store. Currently, I run our Lifecycle or Trigger program, so my job is to keep people engaged and keep people subscribed to our email newsletters.
Great, thanks. And again, a great mix of companies. We're going to hear from large companies, small companies, new brands, old established brands, and it'll be interesting to see where their challenges overlap and where their challenges are unique to what they're doing. But before we get into individual company questions, I wanted to sort of set the context for where each of their heads are at a higher level. So my first question to the panel is, and I'm only going to give you 3 options, so which one of these options comes closest to your main objectives or your organization's main objectives going into 2017? And you only have 3. Is it A, you want to personalize and optimize customer experiences? B, want to get more out of your current technology investments? Or C, you want to find outsourced talent to run your data-driven marketing and technology stack? So which of those, I'm sorry, I should have been holding it closer. Did everybody hear that anyway? Good, I'm very loud. Sorry, folks at home. Anyway, which of those 3 comes closest to your objectives for 2017? We'll start at that end with Kate.
It's definitely A. We're trying to do a big push for personalization in our email, so it's A for us.
Personalization, optimization, customer experiences. Okay, great. Moving back towards me, Alex.
Definitely A as well. The issues that we've primarily had with the parks is that each park controls their own database, and there's not a lot of analytics or segmentation in that data. So we need to start getting better at segmenting our guests.
Excellent. Shipley.
It's more of B to get more of A.
Right.
So when you
And they
say-
all overlap. That's fair.
But when you say optimize your customer experience and make things more individual, right?
Right.
My response is, well, you know, I like apple pie.
Right.
I love my mother.
Right.
And I do drive a Chevrolet, and so what else is new?
Right.
Because we are about this every year. But what we'd like to do is be able to automate the absolute winner, highly individualized things. So our best campaigns, 50% of sends open, 25% of sends click through, 10% of sends transact. I always use sends as a denominator so my colleagues in the C-suite aren't confused, because that's what they care about. And this is the kind of thing, because you got to find engineers who love this stuff, and you don't. So today's December 7th. That's the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. There are 30,000 people in our database who are descendants of heroes who lost their lives at Pearl Harbor. And every 5 years or so, we'll send them an email, and we'll say, "Dear Shaylee, did you know your ancestor was a hero?" And you click through, and there'll be a biography. And it will say something like this: "Your relative, Captain Mervyn Benyon, is hailed as one of the great heroes of World War II. His sacrifice as captain of the USS West Virginia is an example of remarkable courage. He was posthumously awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. The USS Benyon, christened by his widow Louise in 1943, saw 28 years of service in the Navy. Click through to see your relationship. Click here to add this information to your family tree." This is what we want, because this is high engagement. High engagement comes from highly personalized things, and we need fantastic engineering and automation to do that at scale.
Great. And also, thank you for reminding us. So, I mean, we should acknowledge that it is an important day in our country's history, and so thank you. And context of that is unbelievable.
There are very few. George H.W. Bush wrote an editorial the day before yesterday. My dad fought in World War II. He died this year, 95 years old. There are very few left from the generation some have called the greatest.
Right. So thank you. Nick,
Yeah.
do you remember the three? Do I need to?
Follow it? No, I remember it.
Okay.
So I think, far and away, kind of personalization and optimization of the experience also kind of rings very true for us. I think we've gotten really good at kind of moving passengers and drivers with relatively blunt objects around kind of coupons and incentives to drive behavior. And I think as we're kind of moving into 2017 and beyond, one of the challenges that I've posed to the team is really to, if every single message that we sent as a team and as a company felt personal and had some kind of touch that we knew who you were and kind of had taken the time to actually understand and built a relationship with you, that we could be infinitely more effective with each of these programs. And so we're really thinking a ton about how do we kind of create that kind of seed of data-based personalization to be the most customer-centric ride-sharing company in the industry, as well as kind of continuing to drive the kind of community and personal feel that has made Lyft what it is today.
Okay, great, thanks. So let's get to some specific questions, and I'm going to go back to Kate, because she's at the top of my list. So Kate, what are HP's challenges and limitations with regard to automation, and what barriers are holding you back from implementation?
HP has had a very challenging past couple of years, which resulted in our company split just over a year ago into two different companies. I'm with HP Incorporated, which is responsible for the PC and the printer segments. So with that, it's kind of forced everyone to reassess, rebuild, get ourselves organized before we can kind of take that next step forward and figure out what the hell we're going to do. So for us, it's all about, again, reassessing and figuring out what we need to do, how we need to get there, and what companies we need to tap into to get us there.
Excellent, thanks. And I'll come back this side to Nick. Nick, describe the current stack at Lyft. What are the things that are working well for you, and where are the gaps, weaknesses, and opportunities? And what are you most excited about?
Absolutely. So the current stack at Lyft, I would say, is we are using our tools to the best of, I think, their capabilities. I think one of the common themes that I've heard throughout the last few days is we're using a number of different tools for what they're best at. And so we use an ESP to kind of send email and SMS in some capacity. We use another tool to do kind of push and in-app notes. And then we've got kind of a slew of in-house tools that we use to kind of unlock the power of our system. And so I think that we're doing a pretty good job of kind of using ExactTarget for email and really kind of being power users of AmpScript to build crazy dynamic content and really kind of create hyper-personal kind of wow emails in the inbox. But also have trouble with kind of some of the automation suite and a little bit more of kind of the mobile side using that product. So we're using AppBoy, which is a kind of newer tool for in-app notes, push notifications, and more kind of real-time data. And it's a tool that is really great, but kind of not quite there yet in terms of email. So one of the challenges that we face right now is kind of using each of these tools for what they're best at, but also kind of pulling them together to create an in-house or a kind of a central and unified experience for our passengers and drivers. And so one of the things that we've been doing a lot more of is kind of thinking about where are the opportunities for us to kind of bring things in-house, and how can we kind of use the tools for what they're best at while also kind of creating one experience. And so what I'm really excited about coming into 2017 is thinking more about kind of use of API and kind of using webhooks and what to kind of tie these systems together in order to kind of have each system know what the other is doing and kind of over time consolidate into kind of a single unified system that kind of leverages each of these tools for their best possible uses.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to ask questions later on. I think one of the challenges that marketers face, and we'll probably hear this several times, is all the disparate applications and providers in the MarTech stacks in their organizations, and that the desire to consolidate and integrate those and those challenges. So we're going to definitely get to that, and who should be doing that, in fact. And we're going to get to that, but I want to stay, for the time being, still focused on some individual questions. Alex, when I read this question, my first thought was, this isn't a great question. My first thought was, why didn't we get the look for your RFP? Because it indicated to me you've just run one, but we can talk about that later. But so how big of a role did emerging, and this is a great question actually, other than the fact that we didn't get the look, because it is a challenge in the RFPs we run, that we manage. One of the key things we look for and ask the ESPs, because we put a lot of the burden on the ESPs themselves for their ability to integrate with these emerging tools, and these emerging features and functionalities around automation. Is it native in the platform? Is it through a third-party integration? So we put a lot of the burden on the ESPs to say they can handle this on behalf of their clients, and it looks like and that really is where your question's rooted in, which was, again, how big of a role did emerging technologies, enhanced analytics, et cetera, play in your ESP selection and your ESP's ability to either provide them natively or through third parties?
Sure. So at SkyZone, our innovation is part of our DNA. We're innovating attractions inside the park. We're innovating how we interact with the guests. As more competition comes along, we have to stay ahead. So for me and for the company, the selection process was through this selection process, it was very important that our partner was seen as an innovator. It was important to see what kind of things they're investing in, staying true to the core of email messaging, et cetera, but how with the ecosystem of cross-channel marketing communications, how did all that fit into our plans? And it was important for us that we stayed in a native platform, SMS, in-app, email, everything was native, and that was definitely the big selling point for us.
Great, excellent. Now I will turn to Shipley, and Shipley, I probably should have asked this first because I think it's a question on many people's minds, and I know AIG addressed what they do. I know it's AEG, but address what they do. So before I even did drill down deeper with you, what does your organization do, and what do you do with the emails you send?
So we are building the family tree of mankind, and we are doing so because it is a commandment. So if you join our church. I love our church. I'd like all of you to join. It'll cost you 10% of your income. But you're welcome to join, and there are a number of you here. We have to do 4 things. We have to be like Jesus Christ. We have to gather souls to God. We have to take care of the poor and needy. I mean, I compete with a $300 million humanitarian budget that no one knows about because Jesus said if you brag about your humanitarian efforts, they don't count. So the first people in New Orleans after Katrina, the only building still standing in Port-au-Prince, that's all the church. We have a branding problem, you know. Some of the New Orleans people said, there are 2 people who helped us a lot, the Mormons and the Latter-day Saints. So we do have a branding problem. And then we are all to do our family histories. And so that's what we do. Now, for every Mormon in the world, there are 7 genealogists. So when we started this in the 1890s and we started corresponding with the New England Historical Genealogical Society, it still exists, is very strong on Newbury Street in Boston, we discovered that a lot of people said, hey, could you help us too? And since we were doing it anyway, we said, sure, you bet. So 70% of my customers have no affiliation with the Mormons at all, and then 30% are Mormons trying to practice their religion. And so we measure success by how many new, unique, proven names we can add to our family tree, and we're at 1,270,000,000. And so it's rather impressive. And so that's what we do. And so that's the transaction, and we believe that you've got to enrich your tree, because if you don't know where you come from, then you don't know who you are. And the world is a better place when you know who you are and where you're going to, because you know where you come from. So that's, I know it's a little bit Pollyanna, but it's true. So that's what we do.
Excellent. And what role does email play?
So what we do in email is we say, this is a time, hey, we just got this new collection, we digitized it, we indexed it, let's say a census, and we run it against Family Tree, and we find some matches, some ancestors that are in this new database that have children and siblings and parents that are not on Family Tree, but they're in the census. So we'll send an email to a descendant with a hint and say, hey, we think we found some ancestors of yours that you don't know about. Check it out. And if they are, add them to the tree. That's our business.
Cool. Thank you. Very interesting. Now I'm going to bounce back to Nick. One of the leitmotifs of this conference has sort of been, the nobody gets along with IT. And I'm not going to jump into that in the middle of that, but I think it is a fact that in most organizations, and now I'm going to proceed exactly to jump right into it. But in a lot of organizations, and I see it all the time, where IT guys like to build things and marketing people like to buy things. And there's a lot of reasons why each side wants to do it their way. But when you're talking about new tools, whether they're new tools to automate processes or whether you're talking about new tools to make decisions regarding next offer or other, again, and these are some of the sort of emerging tools, predictive modeling, next best offer, that we are seeing marketers become more and more interested in deploying. With Lyft, how do you guys determine which things you're going to build and which things that you're going to buy? What do you consider in that decision? And from your experience, and I'm going to ask the question a little bit differently, from your experience, I'd like you to come down on what's the better approach.
So this has been a really interesting kind of theme that's kind of carried through the conference, which actually doesn't ring particularly kind of true in the world of Lyft. And so we kind of think about IT as product and engineering, and when we think about kind of email and communication, we think about those also as products, right? So we're designing kind of automations and programs that are extensions of our app experience and of our web experience. And so we are I think much more kind of have bridged that gap quite much more actively in order to kind of build a single team that's focused on the ultimate goal, which is kind of growing the business and building a better transportation network. And so we are working very closely with kind of our product and engineering counterparts to think about what are the things that we can do with the current tools that we have, and let's push them as far as we possibly can. Let's get as sophisticated as we can given the third-party tools that we kind of have and the current stack. And as soon as we kind of start to break something and we start to kind of realize that, hey, we're getting more sophisticated or need to move faster or need to kind of, push the limits of what the system can do with, machine learning and kind of starting to think more about, hyper-targeting, personalization, and kind of pulling in data, at that point is when we start to kind of have the conversation around, should we build something in-house? And so I think I don't know that I have an answer to, the A is better than B, as much as kind of the right application for building in-house versus kind of using third-party tools. I mean, a lot of these third-party tools, have 20 plus engineers working full-time on kind of building these systems, and it's very hard to think about kind of building a new exact target, for example. But there are certainly pieces of that system that I think we can improve upon and kind of build in-house to kind of continue to advance the sophistication of the programs that we run. So I think that we're doing a pretty good job evaluating kind of where it makes sense to do either, and kind of building only when it makes sense to do so to really add value and not kind of pull back or create hindrances. So.
Great. Before I move on to another question, any of the panelists have any strong opinions on the build versus buy?
Well, excuse me. For us, definitely buy. We have our technology team is at corporate. We're very short-handed on a lot of places, so we end up outsourcing a lot of our development. So I'll say buy.
Great. Thank you. Moving on. And Shipley, we're gonna
Buy where you can and build where you can't.
Right. Well, that's probably good policy.
Well, we had a breakthrough about 7 years ago because we never bought anything.
Right.
But we have now we're in our 5th year of our relationship with Exact Target that came out of an RFP process, and we're thrilled, absolutely thrilled with what it's enabled. But you have to have a crystal ball, because our big priority this year is enabling the live channels with the email campaigns, which means, and it's interesting here because everybody's digital. Well, there's still nothing like a person to close a sale, Mm-hmm. And when you've got someone in the service center with a problem, you got a hot live customer. So we want to enable the live channels with the campaigns. And one of the reasons we selected Exact Target was because at the time, and it's still true, our workflow engine in the call center is Salesforce, and it was compatible with Salesforce.
That's a good reason.
And then we all know what happened.
Yes. Okay, moving on. I'm back down to Kate. And a lot of times in these types of discussions, we use words over and over again that we all think we understand, and we don't get specific, and people have different meanings. So let's talk a little bit about, back to my front page, how do you personalize the HP customer experience? What tools are you specifically using to automate activities and personalize content for your customers?
Yes, so our email program has 2 flavors. We have a weekly newsletter. It actually goes out 2 or 3 times a week. The big goal for fiscal year 17 is to personalize those weekly emails. So we want to send a laptop buyer an email that has laptop content, rather than I think we've all heard the bash and blast. Trying to get away from that and give people what they have shown that they're interested in. The second flavor of our email program is triggers life cycle. So any action that you take on the site, if you abandon your cart, you'll get an email with that product in it. If you buy a product, you'll be entered into our onboarding stream to talk about the value prop, offer cross-sells. We're doing okay with the triggers as far as personalization, but we really need to get more of a one-to-one versus one-to-many for our weekly program.
Great. Alex, I want to come back to you. Why is automation so important to FundZone? And when you use the word automation, again, what specifically are you trying to automate?
Sure, Sky Zone. Yeah.
All right, well, now we can go home.
Sky Zone is Fun Zone.
Sure.
At least that's what the brand guys would say.
Yes.
That's stuck in my head. That's on the show Divorce. The guy's building a
Fun Zone
competitor, and he calls it Fun Zone. So I have an excuse.
Automation is important because, like I mentioned before, the parks individually generate their own email campaigns. So at corporate, which is just me primarily, instilling best practices, instilling new campaigns, new onboarding campaigns, engagement campaigns, et cetera, there's only one me, only two hands. So as much as I can automate, as much as I can create campaigns that are automated, the better. And most importantly for us is the cycle, the journey of the customer, because 80% of our customers are on mobile. So whether they're reading an email or visiting the site on the mobile site, and us launching a loyalty program with the app, it's one of those things where we want an automated campaign to go from email to SMS to push to in-app, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, for us, is more of a customer experience journey, and also resources, right?
Great. Steve, do we have a hard stop at 10? I know we started a little late. 10:05? Okay, because we want to make sure we don't want to run out of time for the lightning round. All right, I'm going to go to some questions that I want each of you to think about, given the time we have. So, a recent survey that I was looking at found that only 25% of marketers claim that in an ideal world they would use a single vendor across all of their MarTech needs. Obviously, if you're a cloud, well, if you're a marketing cloud, that's not music to your ears, but that's the reality. So, how does your company approach this? Are you looking at all-in-one solutions, or are you using a best-of-breed point solution when specifically you're looking at the tools that for these emerging needs in automation, in machine learning, in predictive? Again, the things that the ESPs don't necessarily have built into their platform yet, but it's on all of their roadmaps. So again, is your preference that your ESP gets its act together and has these stuffs natively built in platform, or are you comfortable on a best-of-breed approach as long as it can be integrated into some central platform? So we'll start with Nick. We'll just go straight down the line this time.
So I think I would put myself into the 75% of, wanting a single kind of, ESP and engagement ecosystem. I think there's not a tool that I found that is kind of quite there yet. And so,
actually, it's only 25% that wanted the single one. 75% say, we'll go with the best of breed.
Oh, interesting. So again, so I would say that we would really like to have kind of a single system that kind of every channel talking to each other and kind of aware of what's going through others. We haven't found the kind of silver bullet to get us there. So I think as of now, we are kind of okay with the patchwork that we have as an ecosystem, but certainly are moving and very focused in 2017 on consolidating where possible in order to create a smarter and more personalized and custom customer experience.
Excellent. Shipley.
Well,
same question.
If the point solution won't integrate with your platform, it's dead.
Right.
Right? Dead cat bounce kind of thing. Right? Now, I said great things about ExactTarget.
Yes,
and
you
they're
did.
wonderful partners, but we're going into a difficult time because they are basically canceling our user messaging service. Now, our user messaging service has intraday response. Hey, I need this template changed. Great, it's done in an hour. ExactTarget takes 3 days. That's not good.
Customer's always right. Even when they're wrong, they're right.
So the other thing about the point solutions is those guys are really smart and they're way ahead, and I'm really stimulated and get fabulous ideas to move my business ahead when I can work with them directly. In the ideal world, the big platform would have everything, one-stop, fantastic. The reason I think 75% of us are skeptical is it really hasn't happened yet, and the great point solutions tend to get homogenized when they're reverse engineered and put back into the beast.
That's a really interesting observation. Thank you. Good stuff.
Single point.
Single point? Single point. That's it. That's it. All right, you've heard it. You've heard from Alex. Kate.
Single point would be super efficient, which I love, but are we there yet? Things are constantly changing. I've met so many of you with your different tools. Things are changing every year. I don't know how that would work, but I would love to do a single point.
All right, I have a favorite saying. I didn't make it up, but if you use it, you could say I made it up. But that marketers oftentimes find themselves with having enough planes but not enough pilots. So my next question is less about the technology that you're grappling with and deploying, but the people. So because sometimes it's not just a question of having the right new technology, but again, having the right people. Are you finding it difficult to get the people resources to maximize the value you get from emerging technologies? And where do you expect to find these people? Do you expect them, are you looking for them to be on your staff? Are you looking for them to be provided by your ESP? Or are you going through an independent email agency or some other services provider? So again, do you have trouble finding the people to fly your planes? And where do you expect to find them? Right? Do you expect to find them on your staff? Do you expect to find them at your ESP? Or do you expect to find them through some sort of third-party independent email agency, like a Merkle or a Trendline or one of those such? So, Kate, starting with you.
Yes, good people are hard to find. HP is a huge, slow-moving company, and our hiring process is just way slower than it should be. So, we try to find people internally. We just pulled someone over from the IT world of HP, so he's working with our marketing team right now. If you have any ideas on where to find these folks, let me know. Definitely we don't have enough pilots right now.
Excellent. Coming backwards, Alex?
Sure. For sure, for us, because we're a nimble organization, it's very hard for us to justify massive amount of headcounts for all the parks, et cetera, et cetera. So we rely on our partner to be the extension of our team. So it's me plus the partner getting involved in creating campaigns, creating roadmaps, and working on strategy.
Great, thank you. Shipley.
College kids, teach them how to fly, then send them off on the planes.
So, but if I interpret that correctly, you're talking about people that you would hire, internal staff.
So it's, when you talk about like nimble, bright people who are really good with all this stuff and very comfortable and have a low tolerance for blast, which makes them different from my colleagues in the C-suite,
right,
as was observed. We have had great luck with interns.
Right.
And
I hope
then,
you're paying your interns.
Yeah, we try to get them for free, and then we pay them.
Okay.
And then when we pay
You heard it here first?
Because, there's all sorts of regulations, about how you have to give them good experiences and all that stuff. So we do all that.
Good, thank you.
And then they're great entry-level employees, and this stuff is so new, and the technology changes every day. We do better with those who are early in their career, who are having their mental pathways molded by the possibilities of the new technologies, sometimes, than we do with more senior people who are still operating in a brand mass marketing world.
Right. Okay, and lastly, to you, Nick. Where do you find their people to fly your planes?
Sure. So we are also a very lean team. We run everything in-house from kind of strategy through to production and hitting send. We hire a very kind of rare breed, I would say, in terms of looking for someone who is a cross between kind of a marketer, an analyst, and an engineer in a lot of ways. So we're looking for folks who are data-driven and scrappy and eager to kind of get things done through any possible means. And so one of the things that we really kind of value as a team and in our hiring process is really kind of thinking through and talking about or finding folks who can actually take an idea all the way through to at least experiment execution to get that first data point. And so we're talking about kind of finding the database insights, building the campaign, kind of running the program, and then coming back and reporting on results. So we really kind of try to eliminate dependencies in order to continue to move quickly, and then automate once we find things that work in order to really kind of maximize the scale and the leverage of our team.
Great. Do I have one more general question before lightning round, or do I need to go to lightning round?
Let's go to lightning round so we have time for questions.
All right, great. Oh, okay, great. All right, lightning round. In this version of the lightning round, there's two things. One, we're shaking it up a little bit. I'm going to describe a value proposition, and you have to say on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not interested at all, 5 being extremely interested, how interested you are or not in that value proposition. Now, the kicker is you only are allowed one word. So if you say a number and then give an explanation, you're out of the lightning round. So the only way you stay in the lightning round is one word. You just give me a number answer, all right?
Is there a prize?
Are we clear now?
So
Can I get your watch?
Is everybody following this? Can we write these down?
This is,
A number, no
A number,
words.
just, your only possible answers are 1,
It's a number.
2, 3, 4, or 5. Anything but 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you'll be asked to step down from the stage.
Voted off the island.
It's getting tougher, yep. So, okay, so here we go. On a scale of 1 to 5, again, how would you rate this proposition? Having the newest technology to generate actionable insights across marketing platforms. Nick?
4.
3.
4.
4.
All right. 4, 3 4s and a 3. Thank you. And nobody's out. Good. You all go to the next round. Okay. 1 to 5, how would you rate this value proposition? Having the newest technology to unify workflows across multiple marketing systems. 1 to 5. Nick?
5.
4.
5.
4.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. This time we're going to come this way, so I'm going to go to you first, Kate. 1 to 5. How important having access to services teams who can implement and integrate multiple marketing systems?
5.
5.
5 plus.
5.
Should we let him in? Should we let him in with that? All right, we'll give you one, because the enthusiasm was infectious. So enthusiasm. You weren't trying to break the rules.
Attention is killing us.
And I just want to stop briefly and say, 5s across the board. People are you've just heard it, people are a critical component to the process of new technologies, emerging features and functionality. People are the critical component. Okay, we have a couple more, because I know he's giving me the look, and it's not we'd like to invite you to do our RFP look.
Longest damn lightning round I've ever.
On a 1 to 5, and we're starting at Kate again, coming back up. Shipley, please, one word. How important is it to have access to services teams? Again, this is not the same question. Having access to services teams to run all or parts of your data-driven marketing campaigns.
4.
2.
3.
1.
Notice a distinction. Running the campaigns, they feel like that's less important, but having the integration of the multiple platforms for all those integration folks out there, those are 5s. Just a couple more, Steve. Okay, starting from Nick. How important is it, 1 to 5, having the ability to identify what is most important to customers in real time?
5.
5.
5.
5.
Okay, and lastly, 1 to 5, starting again with Nick. How important is it to have the ability to dynamically match offers to individuals in real time?
5.
5.
5.
5.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, panel participants.
you,
These
Chris.
guys did a great job, so let's give them a hand. Great panel. Thank you, guys.
Anybody have any questions for Chris and the panel? Yep, hang on.
Okay, on the build versus buy technology, or question that you asked earlier, and I'll look at you, Alex, because you were like, buy. IT can't not be involved with that, right? Sure. So how are you bridging that gap if you're then giving them the bright shiny tool and telling them to implement, and then they get all irritated because they think they could have built it?
Sure. Good question. Through the vetting process, when we're looking at vendors, when we looked at Emarsis for our ESP platform, and we looked at a loyalty program, IT is involved upfront with us during all the meetings, during all the demos. So at the end of the day, at SkyZone, we have this rule of decision by consensus. So at the end of the day, my opinion is weighted, IT's opinion is weighted, but everybody comes into a consensus.
I would also add there that when you're kind of thinking about, getting engineering to help implement some of these tools, a lot of the reason that they really don't like it is because the backends of many of the kind of more legacy systems are just awful to work with, right? So there's a lot of pain for them to kind of figure out SOAP APIs and all this kind of legacy technology, when a lot of these folks are interested in working and moving forward in kind of more interesting and more kind of modern tech. And so I would say that the most success that we've had in vetting new systems is when the back end is as good as the front end, right? So when you've got the ability to integrate quickly and add new data and kind of monitor and kind of tools that are kind of friendly to be worked on by developers, I think are the ones that are kind of both probably the kind of best for you as a buyer in the long run, as well as kind of the easiest to, I would say, get consensus around.
The process of the buy decision is managed by the engineering program office. And so we set requirements but the engineers also set system-level requirements, and when the engineers feel like they're managing the process, then they own the outcome.
Chris, panel, thanks very much.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chris, stay up there and let me ask Kay and Morgan to come up. So before we go to roundtables, I wanted to end our summit by a little bit of a roundup and a reflection on some of the things that we covered, some of the shared learnings, both on stage and off stage. I've asked 3 veterans of the email summits to share their thoughts, maybe contextualize this a little bit. You just met Chris. Kay, reintroduce yourself for us.
I'm Kay Kerman. I'm with Children's Medical Center in Dallas.
And Morgan, remind us, many of you know Morgan, but Morgan's first time on stage this time, so Morgan, tell us who you are.
Morgan Stewart, CEO of Trendline Interactive.
I really do want this to be interactive. So as any of these 3 talk about themes that struck you, I'd love you to chime in. Please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. We want you to share your thoughts because the purpose of this last session is not only to talk about the shared learnings, but also leaning forward, the things we need to move towards. And me, as your programmer, I want to end with thinking about Amelia Island and what I should be programming for the next time. So let's go down the line. Chris, tell us some of the themes, or at least let's start with one of the themes that really struck you.
Yeah, thanks. I find it interesting, and it was just a few years ago where we were still, at a conference like this, there'd be, is the email dead, is email dying? And fortunately, that meme ended several years ago. What I think is so interesting, and what I think we heard over and over again at this conference is, it's alive and well, yes, get that. But not only that, it's the center of the MarTech universe. The ESP, the email platform, has become the thing around which everything revolves at within a marketing organization's IT structure. Every time we saw it diagrammed, every time we heard people talking about it was about what's coming into that system, what other data sources are feeding into that system to support what that system's doing. So, whereas 5 years ago, a marketer might have automatically assumed, well, my e-commerce platform is the center of my digital universe, of my MarTech universe. What I think we heard over and over again here is that in many leading marketing organizations represented by you folks here, again, you've reoriented everything around the email platform. So now it's the king. It's not just a survivor, it's the king in your IT infrastructure.
Yeah, I would add that one of the things that I heard that evolved from the last summit was, the last summit we were talking about the centrality of email, but mainly we were tending to talk about it as the universal identifier and the most reliable identifier across channels. And this time I heard a lot more about the data that email is gathering and how email can maintain its centrality by feeding this data to all of those other pieces, to display, to social, and inform all those pieces.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Okay.
Well, kind of to play on what you just said, which none of us have talked about any of this stuff in advance. So what we're up here talking about is like pure off the top of our head.
And getting to go first is excellent because nobody said what I said, right?
But I'm really proud of us that none of us have said that email is dead at this conference. So, I know. Well, no, but it hasn't come up before now. Thank you, Chris Marriott, for reminding us of that. It was probably in Ryan's bingo game. Yeah. Was it in your bingo game?
No, I left it off.
Oh, see, nobody would have won until now. So anyhow, and I think one of the biggest reasons why it's not is because we have increased monetization and we've used it to enhance the customer experience. And I think we heard that as a common theme throughout the entire conference, that everybody is really looking to email, enhancing the value, increasing ROI. It is the social security number of the new and coming universe kind of thing. And I think that's how we've made sure that it didn't die, and we've made sure that it's something that's a value, and it really has to be central to every marketing strategy. And I think that all came out through here.
And it reflects especially well as many of those other channels struggle, like social, for instance, to demonstrate its ROI, is that the value of email just seems to go up as some of these others struggle to prove content marketing, all these things are struggling to prove their ROI, and email sort of is ascendant within that pyramid. Sorry, Morgan, go ahead.
I mean, I hate to be the Me Too guy, but I think there's an aspect of how long we've been talking about all the stuff that should be happening. And the thing that stood out to me is that, okay, now a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about for really the past 5 years is starting to happen, and it's happening very, very quickly, and that's exciting. I think that really opens up some of the okay, what is the next step for sort of the AI, as Lauren called it, or predictive modeling and all of that. And I think there's a real opportunity to take that to even further level, and it's going to be, just based on hearing what people are doing, it's going to be really mind-blowing over the course, but by the time we are in Amelia Island, to see some of the successes that are happening there, and some of the really cool, highly targeted and customized programs that are being created. One of the roundtables I sat on was around the idea of hyper segmentation. And I think the takeaway there was, it's not about hyper segmentation. There's only so much you can go to on a segmentation level, but hyper personalization is and should be the norm going forward, so that every piece of content that somebody is getting should really relate to that individual consumer.
I also wanted to ask some of the roundtable leaders over the last few days if any of you wanted to add some of the themes that emerged in any of the discussions that you were leading over the last few days. Yeah.
So my roundtable was, is hyper-segmentation sustainable? And a lot of the themes that kept coming up was that it wasn't so much about hyper-segmentation in terms of quantity of segments, but more about deeper segmentations in terms of quality. And it really differs between each company. If HP was about retargeting the specific product, if it's a printer or an iPad, and LensCrafters were about when you're going to get bifocals, Domino's was about delivery in or out. For us at Warner, it's about the playlist genres or music consumption channels. All of these are much deeper than the usual segmentations we think about in terms of purchaser data and locale. And they all came out of insights and analytics for each company to identify the relevant, I should say the most relevant opportunities for segmentations, because we can't do everything. So we use the insights and analytics to find what is the thing that will be most impactful in our business. It's certainly different per company. It wasn't the usual things that we would think about. And then people were talking about how they put some sort of triggered automations in place to identify the people as they qualify for the different segment, and based on that, trigger to them the right communication. Start small, and from there you could scale to more and more segments.
Anybody else? One of the themes that I wonder if you guys could address this and what you heard over the last few days, personalization, which has been the persistent theme of the email summit for a while. Where we are, and Morgan, you mentioned that I think that one of the things that you've been seeing is that the things we've been talking about over the last few years, we're really starting to see implemented in a much more serious way. So I'm curious what you guys think about, what you heard about where we are in terms of personalization, what stage we're at in understanding where it matters, what kinds of personalization really resonate with users.
I think I was looking at you. All right.
No one knows who I'm looking at.
I think that there are certain aspects of personalization that I think we're doing really well. And just hearing some of the stories is really encouraging. But it feels, again, I go back to Lauren, but I liked his presentation, this idea of, if we do a whole bunch of machine learning personalization on a subject line, for example, you can start to get into some fairly kind of stupid combinations that look really, really weird. And I think the trick is going to be to how do we identify those, right? It's really hard if you're sending out, a campaign that's targeting 1 million subscribers, and they're all personalized to some degree. What are the mechanisms that we're going to put in place to tell the machine that was really stupid, and it didn't make sense? And that's the part that I think we're so excited that, hey, we're finally personalizing, and we're kind of patting ourselves on the back that this is really good stuff. But those examples are not infrequent. At least if I look in my inbox and it you get the, I've been marketed by one travel company to come and book a hotel in Phoenix for about 3 years now. And I've been to Phoenix once in the past 3 years. It just doesn't make sense, right? So we've got to have the QA processes and the intelligence processes to feedback and start aging off data that's not relevant, frankly, for personalization anymore.
And kind of further to that, I love the Detroit Pistons example with his customization piece of it, and he put in the logic that with the wins of how many games you attended that they won. He actually built into the logic that if it was 0, they're not going to show that. Instead they'll have something else that'll pop up. And so you've got to think about things like that when you're building it out. You can't just say, okay, yeah, let's just put in there how many times that they attended that they won, and we'll just run with it. You've got to really test, and you've got to learn, and you've got to look at the data and look at lots of examples before you just say, okay, this is great, this is fantastic, let's just automate it and not look at it anymore. You've got to constantly be going back and looking at it and making sure that the data that you're plugging into your emails is what makes sense.
Right. Relevance is not easy. It's not as easy as
no, it's not easy.
And Shipley's example of the that he just used with families of veterans. I mean, that's an incredibly creative example of that kind of relevance. But this is not easy, and it takes a lot of testing and a lot of creativity. And I think that's one of the themes that I saw come out here, that relevance is not easy, and it takes a lot of creative thought about what data points really are going to resonate with the user, as opposed to the ones that either creep them out or just seem machine-like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I love the idea that more and more companies are saying we are a customer-first company, and just being able to frankly put that up on a pedestal as this is the goal that we're going toward in marketing. That in itself, we've been talking about for years, but it's actually true, and the C-suites are buying into that, and I think that's driving a lot of the innovation and pushing forward in this area.
Thanks. To add to the point about relevance, too, it isn't just continuing to be relevant, but it's being relevant and original, and not being relevant in a static way, which I think is something that, from an email marketing standpoint, we're all guilty of as well. There seems to be a point of where we build relevance and then we kind of freeze there. The examples this week were exceptional. The Palace Entertainment presentation that you mentioned, Kay, is a great one, where taking that relevance a step further. Shipley's examples as well. Continuing to be original, continuing to be creative about where we find that relevance and how we build it into the campaigns, and not resting our laurels on the easy things to do, or not that any of it is easy, but the low-hanging fruit where relevant content's concerned.
Yeah, and I think getting back to sort of the opening question, what are some of the key takeaways? I think one of the things that I struck me very strongly this EIS is that it's not that that relevance and personalization are suddenly hot topics. I mean, we have been talking about them for ad nauseum for years. I broadly declared 2006 in a column the year of email relevance. I arrogantly decided that was going to be the year, and so it's nothing new. But what I love about it, the fact that we are talking about it, is you look back at the agenda of the EISs of 3, 4, 5 years ago. We were, as a group, constantly getting distracted by the latest bright, shiny object. What's social's impact going to be on email? What's mobile's impact going to be on email? What are apps? And we spent so much time obsessing about things that came and went. And what I'm really impressed about this year, and part of it's programming, Steve, so this is a shout out to you, is that we're not distracted this year. We are talking about the things we should be talking about. And that to me, that's maybe the most encouraging thing coming out of the summit. That again, while on some levels it might be, God, I'm sick of talking about personalization and relevance. The fact is that these emerging technologies that we were just talking about in our last session and that other people have talked about are enabling greater personalization and relevance. And there's never enough. You've never said, okay, I've reached, all right, I'm done personalizing. There's nothing else I can personalize or make relevant. You can always do more. So, again, I'm happy that we continue to talk about these things, even if we've been talking about it for 10 years.
Well, that's the perfect segue, because where I wanted this to lead is to reinforce the fact that this, more than any other summit we have, is a real community. We have, those of you here who have been coming here for 10 years, and we hope 10 years more, and we program these twice a year, and the idea is it's an ongoing conversation, and it's a conversation fed by what we learned here this time and pointing forward to what comes next. So my question of the three of you, but also everyone here, is where do we go next? We're going to meet in Amelia Island in about 6 months. I need to know, as I move forward, who should I be putting on stage? What are the things you want to talk about? Are there particular cases? Are there particular categories? Are there particular themes and problems that you want to find us want us to find a way to talk about? So let's, you three can start, but please, anybody raise your hand and let us know where you want to go next, what we should be talking about in 6 months.
Ryan has a question. Surprise.
Or a position. Ryan has a position paper.
Ryan has the agenda.
There we go.
Glad you asked.
Since you asked, for years I think a lot of us have been coming to EIS, and one of the great things about this show has been that it really takes an advanced look at any problem or tool set that we have. Whether it is big data, the death of email, cross-channel attribution, whatever it is. Yes, I brought it up because I can. I would like to see a deeper look at all of the kind of things that we've talked about this week. Attribution and the impact that it has across an organization. How email is at the center of the digital universe from an addressability of the consumer and what that means in the next 2 years. What does email look like when we start to go beyond just sending a promotional email with a discount, right? Let's take a deeper look at really all of the topics that we have to deal with and start thinking ahead 2 steps about how we drive our programs forward and what we as marketers need to be aware of in where this space is going. Because it's going a lot faster. We've got about 18 months of some really aggressive development and evolution in the channel, from the stuff that Live Intent is doing, from the stuff that LifeScript is doing, from a lot of the different companies in this space. There's a lot of technology and a lot of big data concepts and uses of the email address to identify the consumer that's going to fold what we do for the next 2 to 5 years.
And Beck?
I'd like to see more of a deep dive into machine learning and AI. What people are doing successfully with machine learning, AI, where we're kind of falling down. So I'd like to see more focus there.
That was actually at the top of our list.
I agree.
If I go back to the chart I used yesterday, people, process, strategy, and technology, I think over the years we've focused a lot on strategy and technology at this conference, and I think following up like on Joyce's presentation, I'd like to see more focus on the people and process, especially process, because I know in my experience meeting with clients, it's process that holds everybody back. So anyway.
We'll keep it in this corner. I would love to know, going off of AI, what happens when Amazon Echo is now sorting your emails? How are my emails going to the top and being the ones read when you have machines sorting your inbox for you?
I am clearly not doing anything cool with my Echo. That's just music and weather.
Maybe.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. I like to know about how people are building their teams. We're still, like I said, in sort of high growth mode, and I'm always curious about the best way to sort of add resources not only on my own team, but sort of advocate for resources across the company that help with the CRM as we expand. And then one humble suggestion on content. Everyone here is super fabulous, and I didn't get to talk to half the people I wanted to. And so I want more time, like speed networking or something, where I have a chance to sit down with even more of the brands and companies that are here. So, great content.
We often people ask us to like double the size of the roundtables and the longevity of the roundtables.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The thing that I would love to see this group spend some time on, that I know I'm doing a lot of personal research on right now, is what it will look like when email has payment embedded in it. I mean, I know Gmail's playing with Pony Express, and it's like real rudimentary, pay a bill. But I mean, I really think embedding, I've always had this vision of what does email look like when it moves from a traffic channel to a transaction channel, and what that looks like. And I mean, that's a little bit off, but I think a group like this is well versed to be able to have a panel or a dialogue on that.
Well, interestingly, one of the things that happens here is there's a certain seasonality to EIS right now, because, for instance, you notice that a lot of the presentations were very event category driven. That was the category that could come this time, because in early December you just can't get the retailers here. But in Amelia Island, all those retailers who couldn't make it this time tend to come, and that's where a topic like that would become especially valuable within that context. More? Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm blinded.
I would love to hear more tactical, operational, like how you get it done, right? With limited resources, lots of data, lots of stuff coming at you. How do you get it done? Like specifically, what do your teams look like? What do your days look like? What do how do you think about solving mistakes? How do you think about building the tactics that sit on top of all the strategy?
So I'm hearing a lot about internals, right? You want a lot about process, personnel, relationships across the more of the and you tell me more of the stuff that Joyce was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would love is a broader space inside of EIS for startups, right? And there's a lot of groups that started as startups just a couple of years ago, LiveClick or Moogle Inc., who have now grown up in a lot of ways. But there's also a lot of stuff going on inside of things like artificial intelligence and so forth. And they, I think that there's a place for them here. I'm not sure that they necessarily have the forum here to feel like they can come in and say, hey, look, here's where we're making an impact on some of these problems that are being articulated.
Steve, I'd love to jump in there. One of the things that kind of to David's point, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time thinking about right now is, if you look at the Chief Martech, if anybody's familiar with that, the logo fest that he does and kind of categorizes all of the technology vendors in the space, and he updates it every year. And the rate at which those logos are being added to that graphic are just daunting. It's completely overwhelming. There are so many new vendors, so many new solutions on the market at any point in time. And yet, I think the question that Chris asked, right, was this: if you could have the hypothetical one-stack solution that does everything, right, would you want that? And the reality is people do, but there's a business side of this, not just from the tech or, hey, here's the cool new tools, but there's the actual fundamentals of the business that we need to look at and say, is it right? Is it in the best interest of clients to say it is all full stack, right? Do we really want to put all of our trust in one entity and assume that we're going to become innovative? Right? Now, at the flip side, they have the resources to drive immense innovation, and I think that's why a lot of people are really picking up on this. So there's a business side of the debate, and we do want to welcome those small companies who are disrupting.
Listen, I want to move to roundtables, but I want to thank you guys for kicking us off. Thank you for all of your input. As I said, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to make well, I know you guys all love your B2C data, but I'm going to make the plug for some B2B work as well.
B2B. I want to first of all, thank all of our sponsors who supported us over the last few days and continue to support us. All of our speakers who put in some great hard work and moderators. Great stuff this week, I hope. And I am at Steve Smith at MediaPost.com. I welcome all ideas, all ideas for how we implement some of these notions. I mean, for instance, putting process on stage. What shape does that take, say, in the shape of a panel? Or brands that are willing to get up here and talk about the ways in which they're trying to implement these processes and what they're learning and their challenges. All of those are the things that we want to put on stage. So thanks again to all of you. Thanks again to Kay, Morgan, and Chris for wrapping us up. We're going to go to roundtables now.
I think a quick thank you to you, Steve, for doing
Exactly.
a really
Absolutely.
fantastic job programming.
Great job programming.
Okay, so where are we with roundtables? I can't read those. Okay, so we got vetting next generation automation tools with Alex.